Evil 4 DLC. Now, if you saw the EFAP episode, which I was lucky enough to attend, and like as a guest, not just as a chatter, although I do attend them as chat sometimes too, because I love EFAP. It's a great show. But Resident Evil 4 was an episode that we did together, discussing this game, the remake, and there were some thoughts about Ada Wong, the actress's performance, her direction, and her aesthetic appearance, which I mean, I think I might be a little bit partial to the Resident Evil 2 remake version of Ada, but that is one good-looking lady, man. I think it would be wrong to say just because she doesn't look exactly like the girl in the previous game that she's not attractive, which is exactly how I feel about the new Jill. Because Jill Valentine, the Resident Evil remake GameCube to Resident Evil 5 Jill Valentine, like that design, is probably my favorite female video game protagonist ever. There's maybe a couple others, but I'd say that's probably one of my top ones. And it was my absolute top when I was in like high school, you know, or it's the end of high school. Get back. Oh, not a lot of lead time on that grenade, huh? Oh yeah, baby, woo! Yeah, first attempt. I didn't realize that I would have less than like 2 seconds to run away from the grenade, because usually they're 4 seconds, everybody. If you ever see a hand grenade flying through the air, before you consider touching it or catching it and throwing it back, understand that that hang time counts towards those 4 seconds, which means do you have time to catch it, throw your arm back, and throw it before that 4-second countdown is up? The answer is no. You don't. So don't try it. Run away. Run away, take cover. Get your head down, get your lungs down, get anything that can kill you down. Maybe protect your balls, if you can. But if you can't think about that, maybe put one hand in front of there, one hand over your head. If you're not wearing a helmet, you should be wearing a helmet. But hey, I mean, sometimes grenades get thrown at you and you're not wearing helmets. Look at Ada here. She threw a grenade at herself earlier. It's totally my fault. Grapple gun, eh? All right, let's see how this goes. Woo! All right. Okay. I'm really liking this DLC so far a lot. I was pretty negative on Mortal Kombat. Good games happen, and I will acknowledge them when they do. Rest assured. Are we dropping down? Holy hell, yeah, right on. Ada is friggin' Batman. Resident Evil's turned into Splinter Cell? I mean, a little bit, but, you know, it kind of makes a little sense that she is a spy. Really, Resident Evil 4 is... Well, actually, yeah, it was Shinji Mikami, wasn't it? Yeah, didn't he come back for this? I feel like he did. But, yeah, no, it definitely did. It was Shinji Mikami, I think, trying to be like, oh, I really like Metal Gear Solid 3. I'm gonna make Resident Evil 4 a little bit more like that. Even from the original, there wasn't crouch walking or anything. Things like the radio calls are kind of like the codec. There's some interesting character villains. There's a lot of spy elements to it. It was like Resident Evil 4 was the most secret agenty Resident Evil game, while Metal Gear Solid 3 tried the hardest to be a representation of Cold War spies in a more accurate way than the spy stuff was in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, because they're mostly like, they're basically sci-fi animes. Like they're pretty over the top in a lot of ways, and Metal Gear Solid 3 is as well, but it's like, hey, what if that over the top anime world wasn't an ultra futuristic one, or at least, you know, a near futuristic one, like it was sometime in the future, 2005 when it's 1997. Setting it in the Cold War, I thought was a really interesting choice, and I think it did a lot of really good stuff to make it a really interesting experience that was distinct from the other Metal Gear Solid games. And I always thought Resident Evil 4 didn't seem to be like, it's not just Resident Evil, but it plays like Metal Gear Solid 3. It's just there some of the same artistic instincts, like impulsions and reasons for wanting to change things up a little bit and do things a little bit differently. And yeah, and I've always appreciated that about it. Dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge are our most important rules. Yeah, no, it's just that I haven't played this game since March, so I've lost my skill. My professional mode skills are no longer here. I traditionally will play survival horror games under standard difficulty because I find that they tend to be designed, or at least the old school ones, tend to be designed to force you to control your resources almost perfectly on higher difficulties. And the problem with doing that first, it's why, like, I think the high difficulties on survival horror games tend to be for people who are already quite aware of the game. So if you go to hard difficulty right away, not only is it not going to be a good experience, but you're probably going to have trouble even getting through it because you don't understand things like how to properly manage your resources in this game. You don't understand how valuable the rifle ammo is yet, so you'll use them on the first guy coming up the stairs because you're sort of thinking you're going to be getting a bunch of it, and then it's like, oh, I have 4 rounds and I actually need these to take out the catapult guy. That's an example of it happening here, but really there's not a lot of survival horror stuff happening right now. It's mostly spy action, which, you know, for Ada, that makes sense. I think that's fine. Oh, come on! I thought I would be able to run fast enough. I was incorrect. All right, we got this. We're gonna do it this time, I promise. I need to focus. I'm doing too much talking, not enough Resident Evil in. But hey, I'm talking because this game's put me in a good mood. It's nice to be playing Resident Evil 4 Remake again, man. It's good stuff. I spent a lot of time in this game. My game time in this is at like 85 hours, which is wild for a game that just has a campaign. I mean, there's mercenaries, but I haven't touched mercenaries. Okay, oh man, I totally dropped the ball on that one. We're in the first area, the first like major battle, outside of a boss fight that I one-shot. What seemed like a pretty difficult one, really, too, as far as it was complex to figure out what was even actually going on. It's been really good so far. I've just not been very successful. It's using like the same map, but in a different scenario where you're playing as a different characters. Like, I didn't expect new maps because it is supposed to be Ada's journey through these same areas. And it's interesting that the combat encounters are very different, because I remember going through this, A, much later on as Leon with a lot more equipment, and B, it being fighting from the bottom up as opposed to going from the top and immediately using the cannons against them. Like, you had to kind of make it up there. It's one of those things that, as clearly as I remember a lot of things, I forget a lot of about games. If I'm ever uncertain about something, there's a good chance I'm wrong. When I'm certain about something, I've usually thought it through quite well, but if I'm uncertain about something and I'm going from a distant memory, I'm probably just incorrect. Yeah! That is awesome. That was really good, man. I'm liking this so far. Resident Evil engine. License it out, Capcom. I want you to have more money than Epic does. I really do. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Look at this engine, guys. Come on. It's great. Looks amazing. Does the VR update for this come out the same time or later? Well, it's a PSVR 2 exclusive, so ask Sony. Because, man, I'm not spending $600 to play one Resident Evil game in VR. Just like I didn't spend $400 to play the original Resident Evil 4, which has apparently a really good VR version that is Quest exclusive. Quest 2, by the way. So if you have an original Quest, I believe you still cannot play it. Sorry, I get very angry about the way Capcom handles VR. They're kind of the worst, and I hate it because Resident Evil 7 in VR is really good. So I would love to play the PSVR 2 one, but there's no chance I'm getting a PSVR 2. It's just not worth the money. There's not enough to play on it to make it worth it, and you can't hook it up to a PC. So it's an exclusive set of hardware that you can't run a whole variety of software on that you might already have access to. So there's no point. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I guess that makes sense why we read that note, so it makes sense why she knows that would lure them away from Leon. Nice! This game has this DLC has better writing than Mortal Kombat 1 already. It's writing mechanics. Yeah, I mean, a timed exclusive, you're right, that would be okay, but having Resident Evil 7 still not be playable on any Steam VR platform or Oculus is crazy. It's insane. Like, you should just let people play it, because it's good. They did a good job. It's like, oh, but yeah, you have to have a PSVR 1 to play this game. Oh, finally.
Hey,
say the line.
Say the line!
So what are you buying?
Yeah!
Yeah!
You've picked quite the place to set up shop.
It all kind of fits that this is just what she was doing during Leon's campaign, and I don't know. It's really making me think like, wow, Ada's badass, man. But they're not telling me she's badass. I'm doing badass things as her, and then they're showing me how strong her character is to boot. That she's like, nah, yeah, don't worry, I'll be fine. I don't know how, no, I don't know if or how I can kill this thing, but I'll figure it out. I'm Ada. I got this, don't worry. I like that. It shows a lot of confidence in the character. And it wasn't cockiness either. It was just like, nah, don't worry, I'll be fine. It wasn't like, please, this thing, it'll be dead in 2 seconds before. Like she wasn't over the top about it. She was just like, yeah, no, don't worry. I find things like this all the time. I'll figure it out. It's pretty good. All right, yeah. So Resident Evil 4 Remake, Separate Ways. What do you think about that one, Rocky? I think it was an extremely good DLC for $10. There was a lot of really interesting stuff in it. It did a very good job of tying into the main campaign where you play as Leon, because you're basically just going the Ada route through the same story. I think it worked quite well. Jose there is saying she's still very stilted, but I think that it, at least in this one, it seemed like that is played more intentionally, as like she is kind of a mysterious secret agent person, and because you get more of her in this, you get a little bit more of her personality. And yeah, I mean, the $10 price point is really hard to argue with. I think I had more fun with this than I did with Resident Evil 3 Remake, just in general. And that was a full price game that I think had roughly about I mean, I played this for about 10 hours, right? Like I had a stream about it 2 days ago, and then one today, and yeah, both of them pretty lengthy. But yeah, so if you own Resident Evil 4 Remake and you enjoyed it and have $10 on your Steam account, PlayStation account, whatever it is, 10 American dollars, or $13.99 here. But I couldn't recommend this highly enough. This is a very good, this is probably the best use of $10 that you could spend this year in video gaming. Assuming, of course, you liked Resident Evil 4 Remake, because it is ultimately more of that. The grapple hook and the long-range melee attack things do a decent job of differentiating Ada's gameplay from Leon's, but it is still very much the same mechanics, same game, and I think that it is absolutely worth your time, because this isn't just they dumped it out in an hour kind of DLC. This is they used the assets that they had well, so they used a whole lot of the map from the main game and some of the same cinematics, just shown in a different light and maybe looked at from a couple different angles, and I think they knocked this one out of the park. And yeah, Rocky he's very chill right now. He's a very cute puppy. He loves Ada Wong. She's his favorite video game character. He also thinks the Bayonetta poster is Ada Wong, but I haven't told him that it's not. He seems to be really happy about it. They're different ladies, Rocky. He doesn't care. They both remind him of Mama. And by that I mean X-Ray Girl. Not his, like, dog mother, like his biological mother. His biological mother is a dog, for sure. Not an Asian woman. Though X-Ray Girl sometimes does joke that she gave birth to the puppies. At least I think it's a joke. Yeah, Ada Wong DLC, I don't know if I'd give it a rating out of 10, because it's hard to really apply that versus, okay, well, how much of this was just you like the main game and this is just more of that. But use of time, only rating use of time out of 10 for money spent, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 for $10.